Hi there, good evening. Hope you are doing good. A very warm welcome to you to the most winning webinar on writing winning resumes. My name is Ashwin Kumar. I have over 15 years experience in the education sector, and I am a senior consultant with Green Books, which is one of the fastest growing companies in the education sector. Now, I would recommend sincerely that all of you carry or keep a notebook and a pen and pencil next to you in order to take down some notes that you may want to. So what is it that you are going to gain after this program? After completing this program, you will be able to do preparatory work, identify and write resumes in various formats, and apply the three-step process to create a winning resume. Now, just before we go into this webinar, I would like to ask you a few questions. Please keep your notepad and pen handy. All you need to do is answer true or false. So are you ready? So here is the first question. A resume can also be called a curriculum vitae. True or false? Please make a note of your answers. When writing a resume, the bigger, the better. True or false? Your resume will be read from the start to the finish by everyone. True or false? Your resume will get you a job. True or false? I sincerely hope you have made a note of your answers. Now, if any one of your answer is true to any of these questions, then it is incorrect, because the answers to all these questions are false. Yes, they are false. If you consider your CV and resume, there is really a big difference between a curriculum vitae and a resume. What is the difference? The curriculum vitae is actually a more detailed description of your achievements, of your skill sets, your experience, your additional qualifications, and all extra additions that you may want the person to be aware of. Whereas a resume is more or less a summary, not more than 1 or 2 pages long. And that is basically the difference between a resume and a curriculum vitae. Now, I'm sure that you know the answers to the second and third questions as well. Now, let me tell you about the third and fourth question. Yes, it is going to be a real shock to you, because nobody, I repeat, no interviewer or employer is going to read your resume from start to finish. That is right. And also, don't be assured that your resume will get you a job. No. Now, according to research, a normal consultant who receives about 30 resumes will only go through about 10 resumes. That is right, just 10. Meaning there is a 66% chance that your resume may get rejected. Now, consider the option if you approach an SME or mid-sized company. The chances are that out of every 50 resumes, only 10 will be filtered or looked through. Which means, again, there is an 80% chance of your resume to get rejected. Now, far worse is a large corporation. Out of 100 resumes, they will only look at around 10 resumes, which means there is a 90% chance that your resume may get rejected. Now, what are the real reasons? We have identified, after several research activities, 3 primary and critical reasons. Kindly pay attention. The first reason is that your resume does not meet the criteria that the employer is looking for. You know what? Studies show that your resume must match with the employer's criteria at least by 70%. That is correct. At least by 70%. The second reason being lack of clarity. And this is one of the major reasons why your resume may not get selected. So, let's look at the third reason then. The third reason, again, being one of the most important reasons, is the lack of formatting. Your typo errors, your grammatical errors, your font size, your coloring of your resume, and things like that can really be displeasant to the eye. So then, what can you do to stand out in this competition? Now, let me just take you to a startling example, a fact rather. There is a lot in common between advertising and resume writing. Did you really know? Yes, there is. Now let's look at what the meaning of advertising is. According to Wikipedia, advertising is a form of marketing communication used to encourage, persuade an audience to take some action. Kindly note those words that are highlighted in green in front of you. Persuade an audience to take some action. What is a resume then? According to Wikipedia, a resume is a marketing tool in which the content should be adapted to secure an employment. Again, look at those words highlighted in green. Both an advertising and a resume have this in common. They actually make the other person take some action. Now, how can you make that person take some action? Meet Priya. She's also known as Miss Talented. She has completed her engineering and has a flair for writing. Now, her friends have told her she's a good listener. Her professors have told her that she asks the right questions. However, Priya does not want to build circuits or do programming, which means there's a decline in job listings for her. So then, what can Priya do? What kind of resume should she write to get a job? Hold your breath. Did you know? Every 5 years, the job market is significantly changing. That is right, every 5 years. The top 10 in-demand jobs between 2009 and 2014, hold your breath, didn't exist between 2004 and 2008. That is right, they didn't exist. Now, if you look at a research done by LinkedIn about the 10 hot job titles that barely existed 5 years ago, have a look for yourself. First one, the iOS developer. Second, the Android developer. Third, the Zumba instructor. Fourth, the social media intern. Fifth, the data scientist. Sixth, the UI UX designer. 7, the big data architect. 8, the Beachbody coach. 9, the cloud services specialist. And 10, the digital marketing specialist. And I'm sure most of us would not have even heard of these jobs in the recent past. Therefore, who knows what jobs will emerge in another 5 years? Did you know? Business is changing. It's dynamic. And so are requirements. Hence, what you need to do is to ensure that your resume is aligned to that of your employer's needs. In fact, consider it as a ticket to the interview door. Now, the most important fact that I would like to bring to your attention is this. The 10-second test for your resume. Did you know most of the interviewers, or at least maximum number of interviewers, will take only 10 seconds to decide whether they will read further about your resume or just throw it into the trash bin? That is right. Keep this in mind. It only takes 10 seconds. And if you can pass this 10-second test, your chances are about 90% increased. So, let us now look at what we told you as one of your takeaways from this program. We're going to look at the process of writing a winning resume. Basically, there are 3 steps to this process. The first one is about understanding and organizing your information. The second is about creation. And the third step is about presentation. Now let's understand them one by one. The first step is about preparing. So what do you do in preparation? Firstly, you will need to know that you will have to understand yourself and understand the business or industry needs, and only when you bridge the two will you be able to write an effective resume. In fact, self-assessment is the first and most important step in choosing an occupation. Now, let's look at how you can understand yourself. What are the components of understanding yourself? Firstly, you look at your strengths. Secondly, you list down your skill sets. Thirdly, you list down your interests. And fourth, you write down your accomplishments. That is right. Make a note of all this, and it's important that you do this in the order that we tell you. There's a simple way that we have identified for you to go about doing this task. Look at this screen now. So all you need to do is create a replica of this grid that you see in front of you. There are 4 boxes. First box you name as the open area. The second box you name as a hidden area. The third is actually the blind spot. And the fourth is the unknown area. Now, what is the open area? Open area are things that you know and the things that others know as well. Maybe your qualifications, your experience, a little about your family, and things like that. The second hidden area is things that you know, but things that others don't know. That's the hidden area. The third, which is really the blind spot, and it's very, very important, is things that you may know, but things that others may not know. That's an important area. And only by talking to people and getting feedback would you be able to avail most of this information. The fourth box is just exactly as how it is written there, unknown. And I think you and I can just leave it as it is. So, what's the first one? As examples, if you say, qualifications and accomplishments are things that you know and things that others may know. What are your second grid area about your hidden areas? That is your strengths, your passion, your interests, your values, anything that you know but others may not really know. And what are examples of the blind spot? They are your body language, your leadership capability, and your personality. Things that really you may not know, but maybe others do know. and fourth really is not too much of a bother. We just leave it as it is because those are things neither you know nor anybody knows. So you can ignore that. Now, this is a task that we tell you to do only because it makes it all the more easier to showcase it to your employees. Once you've identified your skill sets, how do you understand the business or industry needs? Now, there are some critical components to understanding industry or business needs. One is your technical or functional competencies. What are your skill sets in technical and functional skills? Look at the example in front of you, the way they're written to make it easy for you. The second is your soft skills, communication and leadership. Third are your transferable skills. Now, what are transferable skills? Those are those skills that you can take from one job to another. Say, for example, project management. That's a transferable skill because you can use it in one job, you can use it in another job as well. Therefore, the most important thing is to keep this in mind about understanding industry and business needs. And then, what kind of employer would you like to work for? That is a choice you need to make. Whether it's a startup organization, a large organization, or a generic versus a niche organization, the choice is obviously yours. Now, the second step is about creating the resume. Once you've gathered all the understanding and information, all you need to do is create the resume. Now pay attention because this is a really important part again. Resumes basically can be either a targeted resume or a untargeted resume. An untargeted resume is normally used when you do not have a clear idea of what job you are seeking or do not want to limit your application really. But whereas a targeted resume is used when you know what area you want to work in or have some career-related experience you can actually highlight. Okay, let's look at one example to make things easier for you. Look at an application here. This is a real-time application. Look at it carefully. If you read there, it's actually looking for two job roles: finance and accounting and sales and fulfillment. Now, if you're looking at your industry or business needs, you will need to highlight what are the keywords mentioned in the advertisement and use those keywords in your resume to be an eye-catcher. Let's look at it clearly now. If you look at finance and accounting, you will see that 1 to 8 years of experience, end-to-end finance and accounting knowledge, and hands-on experience in SAP is an advantage. Write these down separately. Now look at what is there for the sales and fulfillment. They're written very clearly, 1 to 8 years of work experience in order management and fulfillment. Order to cash operations will be an advantage, very, very clearly mentioned. So make a note of these keywords and ensure that you incorporate them in your resume. Now search job descriptions to find out really what the keywords and phrases are used, and make sure you write them down separately and mention them in your resume. Now look at the other skills and attributes that are common to both the job roles. Good communication skills, strong interpersonal skills, flexible to work in shifts, ability to work with international teams, and analytical skills. You will have to mention them in your resume in order to get a further look. So let's look at what types of resumes there are now, since you've identified how to align yourself and understand yourself better and also understand the industry or business you want to work for. There are basically 3 types of resumes: chronological, functional, and combination. What are chronological resumes? Now, chronological resumes are resumes that present information from the most recent work information and then move in a reverse chronological order. So let's look at when to use a chronological resume. When you have stable employment over the years, it is a really good idea to use chronological employment resumes. When there's growth in a single profession, you can use a chronological resume. When you want to project your existing employer's brand to leverage employment, it's a really good idea to use chronological. Research really says that almost 7 out of 10 resumes today follow this format. Let's look at an example. Look at what is written there for you. If you look at Priya Shanmugam's chronological resume, you will clearly see that employment is mentioned, her latest employment is mentioned first and in a chronological order. If you see Cognizant Technology to 2012 December to the present, if you see the previous employment is June 2009 to November 2012, so that is what is meant by listing your experience in a chronological order. Now, what are the pros and cons of writing a chronological resume? Firstly, it really highlights a strong work history, and it's very, very popular with traditional employers. Also, it's very easy to follow. Now, what are the cons? It's really hard to communicate your skills and your strengths. And also, it can reveal gaps in your work history in case you have it. Now, that is the pros and cons of a chronological resume. Now, let's look at the second type, which is a functional resume. What is a functional resume? A functional resume is when you list your skills and experience first. When do you use a functional resume? When you're attempting a career change and you wish to showcase transferable skills. When you have too much or too varied professional experience. When you lack direct job-related experience. And also when you have some breaks in between. It's a good idea to use a functional resume. Let's look at one example of a functional resume. This is the structure of a functional resume. If you look at it clearly, you would see the competency that is mentioned first, because your skills and experience come first. What are the pros and cons of a functional resume? It really focuses on current skills and not really on prior jobs, so which is a good point. It's more flexible in organizing a lot of information. It's useful for those with spotty or diverse work histories. And also, it de-emphasizes short-term work history. However, they can be too narrow in approach. They may not reveal a clear job path. That is the issue with the functional resume. Now, I hope you have a clear understanding of what a chronological resume is and what a functional resume is. Let's look at the third type, which is a combination. What is a combination? It's a resume where you list your skills and experience followed by your employment history in reverse chronological order. Now, when do we use a combination resume? A combination resume is normally used when you want to highlight skills not apparent in job history, when you want to stress on experience related to job opening. These are the two important reasons why you can use a combination resume. However, it can be confusing if it's really not written well. If your current goals are not explained by your work history really, because a functional resume is not that detailed. Let's look at one quick example of a combination resume. If you look at this example, you will clearly see skills and expertise mentioned first, and then the employment details at the bottom, followed by your educational, professional details, other professional awards and achievements. So, most importantly, let's look at this example in a clear-cut manner in terms of another example. Look at this one, management and leadership. If you look at employment given there, and again skills and expertise, management and leadership is one area of your skill and experience, and that is why it's highlighted. What is your next skill set? Project management. Again, if you see employment and skills and expertise mentioned there, after which you can mention your educational, professional, and other details. I hope this is more clear for you in understanding a combination resume. However, like I said earlier, research has it that almost 7 out of 10 resumes follow the chronological function. Now, most important for you to know is that your resume should be having a proper structure in order to tell your story effectively. Now, what do you mean by resume structure, and what is the resume structure? Make a note of it if you can. Firstly, you would mention your contact information along with your name. Secondly, your objective and summary. Thirdly, your education details. Fourth, your skill sets. Fifth, your work experience. Sixth, your extracurricular activities and interests. And 7, any additional sections. So, let's look at them one by one, all right? Firstly, contact information. What does it contain? Your full name. That is correct. We really don't want you to give half names with initials. Kindly write your name in full. Your complete phone number. And please make sure your phone number is updated. It's an important advice for every single one of us. Thirdly, your email address, because this is an area where at least 10% of resumes do not have email addresses mentioned. Fourthly, your communication address, your complete communication address. And 5, either your website or your blog details. If you would like to mention them, it would be great to put them in your contact information. Now, most importantly is your full name. When you mention your full name, ensure that it has a different font size from the rest of the resume. Now, let's look at some examples. Look at this example in front of you, a very beautiful way of presenting contact information. The name is right at the center top. Bottom left corner is the address details, and bottom right corner has your contact details in terms of your telephone number and your email address and your website address. Have a look at the name. The size of the font is slightly, maybe 1 point or 2 points at the most, different from the rest of the font sizes. Let's look at a few more examples of how to present contact information. Another way, when you have a longer address, is to present information like you see on your screen. Your name on the left-hand side and your address and contact details on the right-hand side. They are both okay to go. The third way is to write your name at the center top and center all your details below it. Whichever way suits you is great, because there is no right or wrong in all these 3 formats. Now, what is the second important thing that you need to know is about your contact information is always first. That is an important point for you to know. Secondly, avoid funny email names. Example, loverboy143@gmail, pinkyrody@gmail.com, or whatever funny names. Kindly avoid them because it's really a no-no. Thirdly, don't list more than one number because any interviewer, the chances are they're going to contact you only in one number that you provide. So please don't provide more than one number, and ensure that one number is updated number. And incorporate your contact information in the header. It has to be at the start. So make sure you get these points very straight, as they're very, very, very critical. So now let's look at the second part of your structure, your career objective or your summary of qualifications. This is a very important step. How do you write your career objective? Now, normally a career objective is 1 or 2 sentences long, and it summarizes the career direction you hope to take. Why? Because it should be a fast and effective way to hook the reader to read the rest of the resume, and it gives greater clarity on job suitability. Now, most of them ponder whether or not to include a job objective than about anything else on a resume. The choice, again, is yours. But however, if you want to have one, ensure you follow the tips we provide you. Have a clear idea of the department or position you are interested in, and if you're not sure or do not want to limit your application, then maybe a summary of qualifications will be better. Now, if you look at another example of a career objective, a very simple one, you would say, I am seeking an entry-level position as a software developer where I can challenge myself and contribute to new product development in your organization. Very clear, very simple language, and very direct. Look at the next example. I am seeking a career in a BPO industry to combine my communication skills and passion for customer service. Again, very clear cut. The person wants to seek a career in BPO industry. It's very clear. Why? Because the person has got good communication skills and a passion for customer service. Naturally, it's an eye-catcher. Look at the third example. To utilize my commerce education and financial experience to serve as a financial administrator. Again, very clear-cut and very brief. If you notice, they're only 1 or 2 lines, and they're very clear about the career path. Look at the next one. To combine my degree in English literature with my reputation as a creative individual to launch my career as a talented writer and editor, which again is a very good way to point out about your skill sets and about what you intend to do in the organization you're seeking employment with. Look at another example. To obtain a sales manager position where I can fully utilize my direct sales experience, marketing knowledge, corporate training, and sales management skills to increase profits and bolster growth. Which means it's very clear that he wants a sales manager position. The person has got that much of sales, marketing, training, and management skills, and is trying to make an effort to increase profits and bolster growth, which means it catches my eye as an employer, and I'm sure it will catch so many other eyes of employers as well. Look at another example of a career objective which I or anyone would say that you should not write. To secure a position that would utilize my leadership abilities. A complete no-no. And you know why? Because this is too general a statement. To secure a position. I really don't understand what position. To utilize my leadership abilities, they can be a little more specific there. Look at the second one. To seek challenging assignment and responsibility with an opportunity for growth and career advancement as successful achievements. To me, itself is a little confusing. And I think any employer will just dump this resume as soon as they look at this particular career objective. Now, when do you write a career objective and summary of qualifications? Like I told you, when you want a generic resume, when you're not sure about what career path you want to take, and you're not sure of the job role, then the summary of qualifications is better suited than career objective. So, what are summary of qualifications? They highlight your strong selling point. They use keywords from the advertisement, just like I showed you in that example. They are 2 to 3 sentences long, summarizing your most relevant qualification, skills, experiences, and achievement. And also, they project hard data. Please pay attention to all these points. Let's look at one example. Human resource professional with 5 years of business partner experience managing 1,000 people in an MNC, in a multinational corporation. This is a highly effective way of providing a summary of qualifications because it says who you are, the human resource professional, how many years of business partner experience you have, and it demonstrates that you have managed 1,000 people in a multinational organization. Look at another example. Excellent written and oral communication skills with strong knowledge of environmental regulations and federal policy planning. Another clear-cut summary of qualifications. Look at a third example, which to me is really an eye-catcher. 8 years as a sales manager of a company with current sales of 2 crores. Bang on. Any employer, if it were me, I would sure read his resume or her resume completely and also call them for an interview. Now, what about education? How and what details will come under education? List your degrees and years of study in reverse chronological order. Include name and location of the institute. Please keep this in mind. Add educational awards and scholarship where necessary, and add specialization, theses, or papers, if any, relevant to the job. How we can do that is one example. Now look at this example. The Master of Communication 2010, Loyola College, Chennai, is not in bold. Bachelor of Media and Communication, the year of passing out, 2007. The university, Manipal University, Manipal. This is a good way of projecting information if you want to highlight your degree or qualification. Look at another example. For those who are expecting graduation, this is a good way. Masters of Communication, expected graduation, June 2014. Bachelor of Media and Communication, year of passing, 2010. If you look, again, your educational details follow the reverse chronological manner. Look at one more example here, and I'm sure you will be able to see a slight difference. Can you notice that? If you see here, the highlight where the letters are bolded is the university name, and it says first the university, Manipal University, Manipal, and then the name of your educational qualification. Again, St. Joseph's College of Engineering, Chennai is bolded, below which your name of your education. Now, when do you write this kind of a format? When you write this kind of a format, only when you want to highlight the name of your educational institution. Say, for example, if you're from Sikkim Manipal University, or if you're from an IIT or an IIM, then maybe it's a good idea to bold those university names. Now, look at another example. This is for somebody who's got at least about 7, 8+ years of work experience. It's a beautiful way to highlight first class PG diploma in banking, Manipal University, Manipal, 2014. First class MCom, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, 2009. First class BCom, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, 2007. Notice the chronological order in which it is written, and they're all written in one line after the other. The highlight here is the first class. If you would like your employer to be aware or want your employer to understand that you got first class, then it's a good idea to use this kind of a format. I hope this section is pretty clear to you. Now let's look at the skill sets. What are they? Now you need to know that you can only choose those skills that are important for the job for which you're applying. I hope you remember the example of the Infosys advertisement we showed you. They have clearly highlighted those skills that they're looking for. And those are the skills that you need to incorporate into your resume in order to grab attention. You need to highlight your relevant skills and how you acquired or how you can demonstrate them. You need to showcase that, and we will show you how. Look at this example. Communication skills. That's your skill set. You facilitated small group training as a team leader, clearly demonstrating that you have these skill sets. You created weekly e-bulletins for your organization. Again, you're demonstrating your skill set. You're certified by Green Books on business writing skills. Again, a demonstrable skill. Let's look at another one. Computer skills. And what's the difference between communication skills and computer skills? One are soft skills, the other is a hard skill. The hard skill you really don't have to demonstrate. So you can write them as it is. So if you see Adobe Creative Suite with Dreamweaver, Illustrator and Photoshop, CSS, HTML5. Very clear cut and very direct. Now let's look at one example again. Project management skills. Again, these are transferable skills. However, you need to demonstrate that you have project management skills. And how can you do that? This is a way. One example. You executed national projects within the budget. You identified potential risks and mitigated them. You demonstrated an ability to work with cross-functional teams. You documented progress and you present project status to all stakeholders, clearly indicating that you have the necessary project management skills that you're talking about. Now, look at career-related experience. What is career-related experience really? You need to actually go in a chronological order, starting with the most recent. Your period of employment, your position titles, your name and location of the organization, your responsibilities with specific examples to demonstrate your soft and transferable skills, examples of which we just showed you now. Your elements of your previous job that relate to the career objective. Look at one example here. Infosys Technologies Limited, Bangalore, India. Programmer analyst. Look at the designation skill set. Look at the year and the way it is presented. Look at the chronological order in which information has been presented. Notice that the programmer analyst and technical evangelist words are highlighted in blue, in bold. Now let me tell you, You can choose to highlight them in bold, or you need not highlight them in bold, although if you do highlight them in bold, they may create more attention. Now look at this example. If you see the name and location of the organization is mentioned, after which the chronological and period of employment details are mentioned, and the position titles are mentioned as well. This is a clear-cut example, after which your responsibilities with specific examples. Now, if you look at this, it's really a great example in presenting career-related experience. Let's look at the action verbs that are written there. Achieved an ROI of 200% on training investments. These action verbs actually speak a lot, and we really encourage you to use such action verbs. We will show you that as the time goes by. Now, look at one example, which is a simple example of career-related experience. A programmer analyst at Green Book Learning Solutions, January 2011 till date. Designed learning interventions that led to 90% completion rate. Again, these are action verbs. Completion rate. Set business objectives to eliminate 10% of the poor programs. Look at the impact it creates. Look at the use of action verbs. Eliminate 10% of the poor programs. So you must understand that this is an eye-catching way of presenting career-related information. Now let's look at what you have or how you present extracurricular activities and interests. This is very interesting, really. Firstly, it's not mandatory for working professionals. However, if you do want to mention them, do go ahead. It will help you when you have limited work experience. It will help you when you are really involved and you want to showcase that you have skill sets in some sports or cultural events, and when you want to highlight some volunteering experience as well. This is very important, but if you do want to mention it, go ahead and mention them in the manner that it is presented to you. What are additional sections now? Additional sections means that you mention areas of your mobility. Are you mobile? Are you willing to relocate from one city to another? That's the meaning of mobility. Secondly, did you get any honors and awards? That's an important thing to mention in case you did. What are the professional associations, if any, that you're associated with? It's a great indicator to show that you care about your professional career goal if you are a member of a professional association. Now again, the choice is up to you. Let's look at some don'ts of resume. This is an important section. You have to keep them in mind. What are the don'ts? Don't mention your age or marital status or attach your picture. Please keep this in mind. Please don't mention your age or marital status or attach your picture. Don't list your hobbies or interests unless they are very specifically relevant to the work you're applying. Don't say references are available. It's assumed that you have references. I'm sure, or at least hope, that you are making a note of these points. Fourthly, don't include salary information unless it is specifically requested. And again, don't write resume on your resume. Everybody knows that that is your resume, at least the person who's at least reading it. So then, I hope you made a note of what these don'ts are. Once you've understood what your skill sets are, once you've understood what your business and industry is, and you've followed the pattern of creating and structuring your resume, we can go to the three-step process of creating a winning resume. What are the 3 steps? Firstly, it is about organizing and creating more information. That is presentation. The 3rd step. Let's look at how the 3rd step is very important in creating a winning resume. What is format and design? Format and design is about using a common typeface. Your Arial, Verdana, Calibri, Tahoma, Georgia, these are common, but the most important and eye-catching fonts that you can use. Normally, you should use a font size of either 10 or 11. Do not make this more than 11 because it can be a little superfluous. Keep the font size very consistent throughout. This is very important. Except for your name at the beginning of the resume, every other part of your resume should have the same font size. The section headings can be made capital in order to stand out. Now again, use bold and italics very sparingly. Do not use any kind of underlining. Use the white space available on the paper liberally, and always PDF the document, because this is a way that you can ensure that you are sending a professional resume. Now let me give you an example of a resume that not only me, but I'm sure you may just avoid reading further. Look at this one. Look at the way it is presented. Look at the incorrect pluralization. Look at the extra space. Look at that inconsistent punctuation, systems. Look at the typo, spelling error. Look at the grammatical error. Look at the unnecessary comma and where they've used. I'm really not feeling happy going through this kind of presentation, and I'm sure you would feel the same way. This is exactly a way the employer or the interviewer will feel when they read your resume. So the step 3 about presentation is actually the most critical step, because a lot of us may just overlook this particular step. Now, if you look at what I can tell you about formatting, is that there is one particular tip that I would like to give you. Every time you finish writing a resume, you please make sure that you read it once thoroughly and you read it the second time thoroughly again. This is an important step, because a lot of us may just finish writing the resume and make the assumption that all is good. Please follow the 3-step process that we have told you, and also keep in mind the steps that we have given you so that you can create a winning resume. Now, let's look at what we have covered in the form of a summary. Your resume is in fact your ticket to your interview door. It does not guarantee you a job. I hope you remember the question answer session. Secondly, you have to choose your resume format based on your strengths. Thirdly, you develop a generic resume and a targeted resume, and you can utilize the generic resume for a generic job application and a targeted resume for a targeted job application, just like the advertisement example that we showed you earlier. And then you structure your resume right to tell your story. It should be interesting for a person to read. That is why we've given you how to structure your resume. And I'm quite sure you must have made notes of that, or you at least have them in mind. So therefore, let me now tell you that you need to ensure again and again that you will read your resume after you write it. I reiterate that because I have experienced a lot of people who do not review their resume once they finish writing. And lastly, you have to present it with consistency. And how can you do that? Only when you follow this 3-step process and you go through the review process after you finish creating your resume. So I hope this has been quite a revelation for all of you, and I hope you will take this information as the basic module for writing winning resumes. We will of course go into more detail and give you more specific examples in our intermediate and advanced webinars on writing winning resumes. My name is Ashwin Kumar. I have over 15 years experience in the education sector, and I'm associated with Greenbooks as their senior consultant. In fact, Greenbooks is really the fastest growing industry in this sector. I really hope you enjoyed this session as much as I do, and I'm sure that you are going to say Eureka. You can write a resume.